Hello there guys, my name is MrYorkiesWorld, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing Orbx Hollywood Burbank Airport, or Kilo Bravo Uniform Romeo for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, it's been a while since my last written or video review. I decided to take a few months out of the flight sim world and focus on some more important family-orientated issues of my own, but I'm glad to be back again and ready to go with this amazing piece of scenery from Orbx. Now, as ever, I would like to thank my friends over at flightsim.com for providing this piece of scenery for review purposes. It truly is a great piece of scenery for Flight Simulator, just as I've said before. So Hollywood Burbank Airport then. It's also known as Bob Hope Airport. It carries the ICAO code, as I mentioned earlier, of Kilo Bravo Uniform Romeo. Now, as per the Orbx website, Hollywood Burbank Airport is one of the primary airports of the Los Angeles area, with mainline carriers flying to destinations across the US. As the closest airport to downtown LA and the major film studios, it's also a highly popular airport with corporate traffic, as well as being a major cargo hub for companies such as FedEx and UPS, for example. So without further ado, it really is a great looking airport. I think I've said that about 1,000 times, but it's true. So let's get straight into the review. So let's talk about performance, which is probably one of the most important parts of any particular scenery. And performance-wise, this airport is actually pretty good. I loaded into the simulator with the fly-by-wire A320 at several different times of day, so morning time, sort of noon, dusk and night. And I was able to get anywhere between 35 and 55 FPS, even up to 60 FPS inside the virtual cockpit and also outside the virtual cockpit, depending on where I was on the airport grounds, obviously. Now, anywhere or anything over 30 FPS is perfectly acceptable, at least in my opinion, in a simulator, as long as everything's really smooth. Now, everything was really smooth, minus the obvious issues that Microsoft Flight Simulator is having right now in terms of micro-stuttering and scenery loading and things like that. And this is the case across all weather types and all times of day as well. It has improved since the footage was recorded for this particular review. It has improved. We've had an update and it's improved quite dramatically, actually. When loading into the scenery itself, it took about 30 seconds or so from the title screen and actually from selecting where you want to start and things like that. I started on the active runway, but it took about 30 seconds or so, although this can obviously vary depending on what else you've got running on your computer at the time that you're actually using the simulator. So some of the shots taken with the drone camera did seem a little bit choppy, as I've mentioned there, but again, this might be down to the performance of the simulator in general right now. It's not necessarily a particular piece of scenery that causes these things. It can sometimes be the simulator itself, especially with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, for those of you interested in what hardware and sort of setup I'm using the 9900K overclocked to 5 GHz turbo, along with 32 GB of RAM and the RTX 2080 Ti. All of the drives on my PC are also either SSDs or M.2s, and it's important to factor that in because obviously different people have different hardware, different sort of hard drives, SSD drives, M.2s, things like that. All of this can play a part in performance. I'm using sort of high to ultra settings in the simulator as well, and I'm using it on a 1080p 60Hz display. So overall, performance, I was extremely impressed. It doesn't matter whether you're in the centre of the airport, up in the air, on the ground, on the outskirts. Doesn't really matter what aircraft you're using or anything like that. Overall, I was still able to get between 35 and 55 FPS on average anywhere around this particular airport. So that is perfectly acceptable. Definitely playable, definitely manageable, nice and smooth overall. So when I was looking at the visuals, what I was really impressed with is how beautiful this particular area of the world is, even without this particular airport. So the Burbank area and Hollywood and things like that have always been an area that I'm really interested in visiting in real life. I've seen lots and lots of pictures and lots of videos and things like that, and I've got to say that this particular piece of scenery, Orbx has done an absolutely amazing job at getting Hollywood Burbank to look the part inside the simulator alongside its real-world counterpart. I did notice a few things with some of the textures, however. Some of them appear to be overlapping or maybe sort of flickering on certain buildings. It only really affects one or two of the buildings in the airport grounds, not all of them, and I suspect that this would be pretty easy for Orbx to sort out. It might not even be a problem with the scenery. It could very well be something that I've done in the simulator, but it's just my experience anyway. So the runway textures, as well as the textures on the buildings, overall they really do look high quality, as do the taxiway markings and the airport signage as well. Everything looks really sharp, easy to see. The shadows and the reflections that go on in the world really look nice against the different surfaces within the airport, so everything in terms of the visuals is just looking absolutely fantastic. So as this is an Orbx piece of scenery, it's always nice to see what features come as part of it. And Orbx always go above and beyond, in my opinion, to give the very best feature-rich content, and Hollywood Burbank is no exception. As per the Orbx website, we can see this particular scenery features custom modelling throughout with complete PBR textures. We've got unique GSE and static aircraft. We've also got a lot of custom vegetation, such as grass, trees, bushes and things like that, and I've actually included some shots of those in the background there, and you can see the very, very high quality as well. You can see the individual leaves, and it's all very detailed and stuff. So we've got the vegetation, such as grass and non-airside detailing things. I think they've put a really huge amount of effort into actually making those things, so sort of, it's not something that you'd look at all the time or take the time out of your day to really admire, but it's there anyway, and it's absolutely fantastic. Implements state-of-the-art optimization techniques to ensure best performance, and high detail weather influenced ground poly, which again we can see the effects of the environment and how good they look inside the simulator against this particular airport, against the materials and things like that inside of this particular scenery. It's clear to see the custom models, the vegetation, the building details in particular are very well put together. Like I said about the vegetation, it looks absolutely fantastic. It's also nice to see that Orbx have taken the time to make sure this airport fits perfectly inside of the already existing photogrammetry-based area of Burbank in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So moving on to night lighting. Now usually in P3D I don't do a lot of sort of night flights, although since moving to Microsoft Flight Simulator that has sort of changed, and I was amazed to see how many different things this particular airport has to offer in terms of what the terrain looks like, the scenery in the general area, not even the scenery of this particular scenery, but the actual surrounding scenery looks amazing anyway. But everything from the lights, the reflections, the shadowing, the weather effects, all look great. And I was amazed by what the airport looks like among a gorgeous city of lights surrounding it at night. It really does look nice. Everything's really well lit. The runway lights along with the apron lights look really good. And the buildings seem to have a nice glow to them at night as well, which gives a more realistic and authentic feel overall. So in terms of how accuracy goes, Orbx have done a pretty good job overall, taking a look at Google Maps and comparing it to this particular scenery. I can't really see many differences, not differences that really matter anyway. In fact, most of what we can see in Google Maps, or indeed in Bing Maps, is also there in the simulator, so it's nice to see a good level of accuracy and a good amount of attention to detail. The runway numbers are correct, as are most of the taxiways. As far as the ramp goes, we can see they've done a great job at trying to replicate the gates and the stands as best they could as well. Even the buildings around the airport itself look to be pretty well modelled compared to their real-world counterparts. Even down to the ILS frequencies for runway 08, that appears to be correct. It appears to work in the simulator and everything, so that is obviously an important part as well. You know, ILS frequencies or any other frequencies associated with a piece of scenery being correct is always a bonus. So you can pick up Orbx Hollywood Burbank for MSFS from Orbx for just £13.69 or $18.24, which I think is a perfectly reasonable price for what you get. Orbx appear to be lowering the prices of their scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator, just the same as many other developers are, but their quality has not reduced at all along with that price, which is always always a positive. So overall, I've been extremely impressed with Orbx Hollywood Burbank Airport. It is everything you'd expect from a great piece of scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it looks stunning against that gorgeous terrain featured within the Burbank and sort of Los Angeles area as well. The performance is great considering what we're dealing with. It's a high photogrammetry area in the simulator, and the scenery is feature-packed with great attention to detail and high-quality textures. In my opinion, this has got to be one of the must-have pieces of scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I know the previous versions, such as I think it was FSX and P3D that had versions of this from Orbx, were very, very popular, and it's amazing to see this particular scenery come to Microsoft Flight Simulator. I would highly recommend that you go and purchase it for yourselves. So once again, I'd like to thank my good friends over at flightsim.com for providing me with this piece of scenery to review. I hope you enjoy the scenery as much as I have in the simulator. Again, go out and buy it. It is absolutely fantastic and for a very, very small price to pay for such an amazing piece of scenery. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Leave me a like if you did, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.